Real quick, before we start this podcast episode, I just want to say thank you for tuning into the Marc Colcer podcast. I know you've got a million things that you could be doing right now, and the fact that you're taking time out of your day to watch this podcast episode truly means the world to me, and I just want to say thank you for that. If you'd like to continue to support the podcast, right below this video, if you could hit the subscribe button, and then, hey, if you got some more time and you want to hit the download button, the comment button, the like button, the share button, any of those buttons, it's greatly, greatly appreciated. It helps for other people to find out about the podcast, and it helps for you to be notified about future episodes. So if you guys could take a quick second, hit the subscribe button, I would really appreciate that. Outside of that, this episode and every other episode is brought to you guys by Roast Umber Coffee. As some of you guys know, I co-founded Roast Umber Coffee, and we have the greatest farmers in Guatemala and Honduras and the greatest roaster in Grand Rapids, Michigan, all to bring you guys the greatest cup of coffee possible. So if you'd like to try it out, go to our website, use the coupon code MARC30, and you're going to get 30% off your coffee. Now on to the episode. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Welcome to the Marc Colcer Podcast. Got to start off by saying thank you for coming back. This is the second time we've recorded this podcast episode, and it's just because yesterday you were running on 3 hours of sleep. I was tired. We both just said, you know what, fuck it, let's do it again. Let's make it the best version possible. And so we came back here to do it today, and yeah, man. So thank you for coming back. Absolutely, man. Yeah, I had fun yesterday doing it, but. Yeah, you're right. Those 6 a.m. flights are tough. Yeah, those 6 a.m. flights are absolutely brutal. Yeah, that's I knew that when you left here, and then you were like, "Hey, I'm gonna take a nap, and then we're gonna go out to eat later." I was like, "Man, there's a solid chance he just does not wake up." Close. And I thought you weren't gonna make it. It was close. I mean, I slept an hour past my alarm somehow. Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, you needed it. I did. Yeah, I'm glad we're able to do it again. I'm more energized, more hyped. Let's fucking go. 100%. So, all right, man, let's start off with telling everyone a little bit about yourself. Yeah, for sure. So I'm Lysergic. I'm one of the co-founders of Trippin Ape Tribe. Just my normal work life the past decade has been in the music industry. So running and organizing music festivals, concerts, national tours, parties, events. But yeah, my main 3 events that I focus on a year are electronic music festivals, and more specifically in the bass world, but also one of them does have a bit of a hip hop focus. So yeah, I've been organizing events from, all the way from 100 people to 30,000 person 3-day events for the past decade, and started doing that when I was 24. And it's been, it's super fun, it's super rewarding, and it's super, super stressful. People always think it just sounds like the coolest job ever, and it is. It's a very unique job, but it's a lot of work. But I think it's kind of taught me a lot of skills that have, are definitely coming into play now and helping me navigate this the NFT space. And so just a little bit about my kind of crypto and NFT background. It's a pretty similar story to a lot of people. I was there for this 2017-2018 run. Held my bags. Unfortunately, had no idea what I was doing. I kind of followed along through the bear market and. Really got back in during that COVID dip. I bought a bunch of Bitcoin there, and then was deep into shit coins on Binance Smart Chain, on Ethereum. And then I used to do that all the time with Danny, my partner. And then I was away for a couple months doing some events, and came back and was like, "Yo, like let's get back in the shitcoin game. Let's get moving." And he's like, "Nah, bro, it's all NFTs now." And so I dove straight in. He was already on Solana. That's where the world he was in. So, that's the world I went into. And, it's the world we love. We almost did launch this on ETH. There was a quick second. We had an advisor that almost tried to convince us to, but no, Solana is what we know and love. And yeah, so just grew right into NFTs and love every second of it. There we go. What was your first project you minted? Man, it was a stealth mint. You remember the stealth mint days? Oh, yeah. It was some Eagle project. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. I don't remember that one, but there's just so many, and 99% of them are just absolute dog shit. Terrible, yeah. I had a string of like really, really fucking bad ones. And I think, to be honest, like the first really good project I bought was a DGOT in January. There we go. Yeah. There we go. Hey, that's not a bad project to start off with. Yeah, those guys do as far as a banger. Yeah. Okay, so before we get started, we do have a giveaway that we want to talk about right at the beginning of this episode. So in collaboration with Hey Wallet, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be giving away how much?
$1,000 worth of Solana.
There we go. So $1,000 worth of Solana to people who are doing something really cool with this episode. So if you're creating a thread, if you're memeing us, if you're sharing the podcast on Twitter, whatever, obviously we have to see it. So the more that you guys do on Twitter, the whole goal of this is to obviously bring more eyes and attention to this podcast episode. So whatever you guys want to do to get creative with that, I think threads are awesome, and I don't think enough people do that. So bonus points if you're doing things like threads and whatnot. But yeah, basically from there, we're going to notice who's promoting the podcast episode, and we're going to be sending Solana to people via Hey Wallet. And so, yeah, if you're sharing it on Twitter, if you're seeing it, if we're seeing it and everything like that, and you're doing something really cool with the podcast episode, we're going to be sending out Solana. So get creative, come up with threads, come up with something interesting, and whatever you're doing to promote the podcast, let us know, and we're gonna be giving away Solana to people who are doing that.
Yeah, dude. Hey Wallet's super dope.
It is.
Like, I actually looked into it. It's super cool. Like,
it's such a cool concept, and it's so nice to just not have to say to somebody like, "What's your wallet address?" I can just send it directly to them through Twitter, and it's just
in that social aspect of like seeing it, like you see me send money to you or something. It's kind of like Venmo, how it has that feed, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it just probably promotes like, hitting your buddy with $20 real quick, just because because you had a good day or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it's cool. Every once in a while, I'll just see random people that'll just be like, somebody says something on Twitter and somebody just sends them over Solana. They send them over Dust. They send them over Puff. They send them over something.
Fucking
this
awesome.
is cool to see people kind of giving back to each other like that. So
right.
But yeah. So now going back to Trippin Apes. So where did you guys come up with the idea of Trippin Apes?
Yeah, so like I mentioned in the last question, my background is in mostly the bass music world, but electronic music. And in the bass music world, the psychedelic culture is like, super prevalent. Like it's hand in hand. So before I was even a festival organizer, I was an attendee. So I've had my fun, right? And psychedelics were a pretty big part of my life, to be honest. And not that I was ever like, someone that did it too much. I use it more as a tool. Like for me in my early 20s, it was like definitely a learning tool. And I just thought that there wasn't really that much representation for that culture in the space. But I know, plenty of degens, like that sort of thing. So that was the style of project I wanted to do. And I just hadn't seen it done the way I wanted to do it. And so, the next thing was the avatar, the character. Like, do we go human? Do we go humanoid? Do we go some sort of like, non-sentient being? Or do we go animal? And we went through a bunch of different options and just kept coming back to ape. And this was like late December, early January. So I don't know if people want to call apes oversaturated now or whatever, but it was even a little different back then when we started working on it. So we kept coming back to apes because they're so human-like and they're so relatable. And they're hilarious to see tripping, I think I said this yesterday, like a giraffe, a tripping giraffe just probably doesn't have that same effect. A tripping prairie dog is, probably, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No.
So we just kept coming back to apes, and like our whole thought was like, this community is going to be, I use this word in a good way, but like hilarious, right? Like it's supposed to be cheeky. It's supposed to be fun. Like it's supposed to just be like something the community can almost like laugh at ourselves about, but like, enjoy it at the same time.
How'd you guys come up with the specific like art style with it?
Yeah. So, again, through kind of the bass music world, so at some of my events, I have like live painters, right? So, or like graffiti artists, people doing murals. Fig is very much in that world. So Fig is someone I know through actually one of my business partners. And he just is an incredible psychedelic artist. Like if you would look at his art, which you should, I think it's at Fig House on Instagram. It's nothing like these Trippin Apes. So we just reached out, and actually at the time he was working on a project, and it was like part of what we want to do is like help on board artists, right? And like he was working on this project, but he really didn't have any idea like what he was doing or how to build a community. So it kind of worked out well in that sense, but. He was doing this project, and I was like, yo, like I have this idea for these like apes that are like tripping balls. And he's like, oh yeah, I love that. And I've been trying to get into space myself. And he's like, let me draw a couple of samples. And the first one he sent me was like that mushroom fur, which is like my PFP and like my absolute favorite fur. And so I was like, yeah, dude, like you're it. Like you're the dude. So it was a lot of like kind of ideas from Danny and I, because early on it was just Danny and I. And it was a lot of ideas just like, hey, can you draw a mushroom cap? Can you draw like a lab coat, you know? And then he would just knock it out and send it over. And I mean, at one point we had 250 traits. I don't know.
Damn.
We just started slashing, you know, like, especially when the hype came, like we started being like, everything needs to be like what we think is, you know, top tier.
I think my favorite skin that you guys have is the orange juice skin.
Dude. So
that shit is so fire.
Do you know the story behind that?
No.
Okay. So, and it's funny because I remember being told this when I was young. It was like this acid, like scare tactic that, I don't know where the fuck it started, but basically, the rumor was that this dude took so much acid that he thought he was a glass of orange juice. And if someone bumped into him, he would spill over. So So I think Danny brought that up one time. He's like, dude, do you remember this story? I was like, holy shit, yeah, I do. And he's like, let's tell Fig and like see if he can do something. And he sent that one over. I was like, dude, I don't even know how you made this fur look like a glass with like orange juice sloshing around in it. But he knocked that one out of the park, dude.
He definitely did.
Yeah.
That is definitely one of my favorite skins.
I love that one
right
too.
off rip.
Yeah.
And then where did you guys come up with the idea of churros?
So we had our lore originally that was more just like kind of general, like apes taking psychedelics. I think it still involved a music festival because we say that the lore now is like Fire Festival 2 happened and someone left a bag around. This ape found it, right? I think that was still the idea. And then Danny and I were talking and it was like we started kind of going through this other scenario of like these apes following this leader. And then we were like, yo, this kind of sounds like a cult, right? And then I think Danny's response was like, well, we don't want to do a cult. Like, and so I was like, yeah, it's not a cult, right? Like, but there is this leader named Charles. And I'm not going to say who that's named after, but if you use your imagination and think about cults, you can probably think of who that might be, you know, where that might come from.
Does it end better than that guy's story?
Let's hope. Let's fucking hope.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool. I think the lore behind it is really, really cool. And so actually, so my question for you based off that is, does it sometimes become hard when you're trying to talk in like lore voice, but then at the same time, like trying to be straightforward about things because people need to understand what's going on, especially during a bear market. Like people, if there's any sense of like not knowing what's going on, people panic and they just sell, right?
Right.
So how do you find a balance between talking in lore voice and then also just being straightforward?
Yeah, I mean, that was something that was really interesting, like especially like immediately post-mint. Like pre-mint, it was kind of fine because we were kind of developing this brand and telling this story and kind of like painting this picture for everybody. Like here's the scene that we want to create. But post-mint, especially like, you know, I think Bitcoin went from like 31 to 20 or 17,000 within a matter of weeks after a mint, which took everything down, you know, NFTs, altcoins, everything. So we had a lot of like when, right? So we kind of like took a step back, looked at everything and we're like, okay, what can we still do that carries forward this like lore and this message and like the fun part, you know?
Yeah.
And so we kind of segmented that towards really right now it's like it's our on-chain quest that like that's what's evolving the story. That's like what's telling the mystery. And that's where like that whole thing's supposed to be fun as well as rewarding. But, you know, we put out this, we didn't call it a roadmap. We called it a operational plan, I think. And that was just like what we're working on. And it included a lot of the like pillars of things that we're knocking out. And then there's also some things that aren't on there because we still have to like make sure that, you know, our ideas don't get front run or, you know, that like we can keep proprietary stuff like close to the chest. So, but yeah, we definitely switched it up and like, we will still talk about like when we make an announcement, it's still kind of in that voice, but like we're very much announcing something that's obvious.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we still have our journals, which have all these clues. And we did this like, I don't know if you saw this. We did this seed phrase hunt.
Yep.
The dude that won it, there was one word left and he ran a script that like tried every fucking word. And so he unlocked the locked up ape. But, yeah, I mean, finding that balance was really tough in the beginning. It came from like listening to people. Like people were like, you know, we want to know what's going on. And on our end, it's like, well, we know everything that's going on. Sometimes you almost forget that's like, these guys know nothing. Like they're trusting us to like do something, but they don't even know what that is. So like, yeah, we've changed it up a lot. And I think during the bear market, I think that's like super important. So, cause you know, back in the day, 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Way back when.
Feels like 75 years ago.
Yeah, but you could kind of, do a project that had a lot of mystery. And as long as it pumps, like no one really gave a shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that was cool. Like I really enjoyed those projects. But it's different now. And this game, in our opinion, is all about pivoting. There's new metas there's Degen Town minted last week, and it's almost like ushering in this new Degen mint thing, right? And everything changes so quick. So being able to adapt and like identify those things is super important. So I think I'd like to believe that's one of our strong suits. So when we saw that we needed to kind of change how we communicate, we switched it up pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for people to, I like the journals and the things like that you guys have. I think it's also important, though, for people to have a really good understanding of what's going on, because I think sometimes, especially when you're in like 10 different projects, sometimes I'm like, man, I got to decode some shit of like what's going on with this project versus that project. I'm like, sometimes I just need it in like straight English. Yo, this is what's happening. This is what's happening, and like this is what you need to do. Because the tough part is, and I think every project founder has to realize this, is that no one just has one project. We've all got 50. So for the most part. And so, you need to have kind of a clear understanding of like what you need to do to like optimize that project versus another, because the last thing you want to do is like miss out on something dope that's going on with Trippin Apes, because you're like, oh shit, like I didn't realize that from the lore that I needed to do this, and next thing you know, I missed out on that, right? So it's one of those things where you have to find that balance, and it goes to I guess like pivoting and figuring out how do people want you to communicate with them, and then is there a certain way that you should communicate in Discord versus like communicating on Twitter and things like that versus on a podcast versus on a Twitter space,
and that's tricky. Like that part was one that we had to really take community feedback on, because we were certainly more like forthcoming in our Discord, and then we got to a point where like, okay, so like our Discord is locked for the chats are all for holders, although I think you can see announcements. But it's like, if you're not, we need to reach those people that are not in the project yet, right? And that's where Twitter and our website and all that comes in. So we certainly had to switch that up. But we're also kind of working on like trying to figure out different ways that we can get that information across without having to check Discord. I don't know about your Discord, but mine is a fucking disaster, dude. Like, it's so bad, right? So we're trying to figure out a way where like maybe you don't even have to go to Discord, because to be honest, like the type of buyer and NFT trader I just don't spend a lot of time in Discord. Like I also have other businesses, and so it's hard for me to sit there all day. And someone brought that up. I think it was Sweeper maybe brought that up in his spaces, and he's like, bro, I can't like sit around and check your Discord and Twitter all the time. And I was like, okay, that's valid. Like, so we're kind of toying with some ideas of like how to get that information out in a new way.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the challenges, is how to communicate in a space like this. And there's no like perfect way to do it. Everybody does it in a little bit of a different way, but I think it's important to gather feedback, like you were talking about, like gathering feedback from your community of how do they want you to communicate with them, and then learning from that. So let's go back to before you guys minted. So when you guys came out was a crazy time in the NFT space, because I think it was like either right after you guys announced your project was the OK Bears mint.
Yeah, like 5 days, I think.
Yeah.
I think they were the 24th. We came out the 19th, if I remember right.
Okay. So, and obviously like the OK Bears mint went psychotic, right?
Crazy, yeah.
And so at that point, I think everybody had this like flipping mindset of, man, if I had just bought like 5 or 6 OK Bears and then flipped them at 200, like I'd be sitting pretty, right?
Yeah.
And so then you guys announce your project, and you guys instantly go nuclear on Twitter, right? And so what was that like for you? And then how did that affect your expectations of the project, knowing like how crazy everything was on Twitter at that moment?
I mean, we felt like we had huge expectations to live up to, And we also understand like OK Bears is a very universal project. Like it at least as far as the art, like, it doesn't really matter. Like someone you can vibe with it. It's just bears, right?
Right.
We're apes on psychedelics. Like that's not gonna like, everyone's not gonna understand that or like vibe with that, which is fine. Like we understand that. But we knew the expectations were like super, super high. So in those first like 4 or 5 days were chaos, dude. Like, people started lumping us in this like new hype mint meta that like they said we started as if that was like the foundation of our project. Like we sat there before we were launching. We're like, we're going to do this thing where we blow up and we're now a hype project and like that's our whole thing. Like it happened fairly organically. One interesting thing about a project, we didn't spend a single dollar on marketing from the day we launched. We spent money prior to set a few things up the day before, and we spent no other money on marketing. Which when we were out last night, I think you might have already left. That blew one of those dudes' minds. But because we did what we called like a front-loaded marketing strategy. So, and that's what you do with like festivals and stuff like that to sell as many tickets as possible. That way everyone becomes a promoter for you, right?
Yeah.
And so that was our whole thing. But dude, yeah, we had a lot of. I remember being on the phone like with my partners all day, like, and just kind of trying to figure out like how to go about this because it felt like a lot of pressure. I remember just like I'm usually really good with pressure. I mean, festivals and shit like that I do are very, very high pressure and like high stress and chaotic situations. But this was like very, very interesting to me. And so like we went back and we like changed like probably, I don't know, 30 to 40% of the art like very quickly. And we had to really like, we actually, to be honest, we probably would have been a little more forthcoming about like, or forthright about like what we were doing and what we planned to do if we weren't so hype. But we were so hyped that, we had talked to some people and some advisors and they're like, bro, you guys could say nothing now and you'll sell out. So it's like, so why set any expectations? And I was like, yeah, I suppose that's a good point. But that was still weird to me as like kind of starting this business and this project where people didn't really know what we were going to do. Although we would like talk up on Spaces a little bit about it. And I talk about my background and stuff and how that plays into the project. But yeah, man, we had to like really like look at everything and make sure that we were like, we had a website ready. And I don't know if you remember how much you paid attention, but our final website didn't come out till like maybe 7 to 10 days before mint.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, but we had one ready. But when that hype started, we're like, this website's not like up to par for like what we want now. It really just changed. It like triggered something in our brain and like changed like how we viewed, the level of professionalism and like just perfection almost that we wanted to be at,
It's always interesting to me that I think that when it comes to NFT space, everybody has an idea in their head of why they think certain projects do this and why they think certain projects do that. I remember I was in a Twitter space before you guys minted, and somebody said that and I was a speaker on it, and somebody said, does anybody know if he actually works at these EDM festivals? And I was like, yeah, I can confirm that I know that he does. I know who he is. I know his real name, everything like that. And so but it was interesting because it was like, I never even thought anybody would question that, and all of a sudden people are questioning that. And then I remember somebody saying like, oh, well, their website didn't even come out until this point, right? And it's like, and now you can speak candidly and say, like, here's the reason why the website didn't come out yet. Like, we needed to make it even better after realizing like how hype everything got. And it's one of those things where I remember you and I had chatted on the phone probably right after you guys had like done your first announcement of the project, and we were both just like, this is fucking nuts. Like, this is crazy. And I think people have to remember sometimes that there's legit humans that are running these projects, and that no one has any clue like what's going to happen with it. And so, I mean, even, I can just say that from the podcast. Like, I had no clue when I put out like the first and second episode with Frank, like what that would do for my podcast, right?
Yeah.
I had no clue. So, it's one of those things where you don't know what you're going to do until something happens, because it's impossible to know what's going to happen, right? So when you guys dropped the first piece of art and everything like that, you had no clue how big it was going to get or how big it was going to blow up.
We were trying to get 10,000 followers on Twitter in a week. We got that in like 8 hours or some shit.
Nuts.
But yeah, so like that was the whole thing. Like our goal was we never sat around and we're like, how are we going to get to 200, 300,000 Twitter followers? Like that was not our thing. Like if we went into mint with 20, 30, 40,000 followers, we would have been fine with that. Like, we just wanted to make sure that there were enough eyes on the project, there were enough people that were stoked on it, that we could, mint out and do what we wanted to do. Like, that was the only goal. We weren't trying to create a new hype meta.
Right. Do you guys feel like, in a way, you were then in a no-win situation? Because even when, I was talking to a few people before you guys minted, and they were like, what do you think the floor is going to be? And I remember just kind of thinking to myself, like, okay, a realistic expectation would be like 15 to 20.
Totally, right? Yeah.
And I was like, but with the way the OK Bears just went, would I be shocked if they went to like 200? No, I wouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
And then
I'm glad we didn't.
yeah, it's a crazy thing, and I think in a way that you guys were in this no-win situation, because if you guys went up to that like 200, right? There would have been such a high like amount of people that would have been selling at that point, because once again, OK Bears had just happened and everybody was salty that they missed out on that.
Yeah.
So I don't even think you guys had a shot of even getting to that level, because it was like the moment you hit 80, this massive wall came in.
Yeah.
Everybody was selling. Everybody was trying to get their quick flip, because if you just minted it, you
That's
just
huge.
had a what, like 20 some X.
Yeah,
and it's like,
that's great.
yeah, no shit. That's smart to take, right?
Yep.
And so as a result of that, the floor drops,
Yep.
and then obviously there's always going to be people who panic at that point, and so the panic people come in, and then when the panic people come in, the floor drops even lower.
Well, then plus a whole bear market where no project was safe, So like there were a lot of weird variables that made it difficult. Like it was definitely an uphill battle, and which is fine. Like we're good with that. Like we're ready to take that shit head on for sure. But a lot of people faded us. They're like, "See, I told you." It's like, dude, like. We didn't set the floor that high right away. Like we didn't tell you guys to like sell there. Like, and I always think that like in any business, like a gradual progression is just easier. But we just didn't have that luxury, unfortunately. So like, and what we knew would happen is, especially with the market coming down, like people would pull their liquidity out, like, and we would kind of find this bottom where it's like, there were people that liked this project but couldn't get in when it was really high, and they're going to get in, right? And they're the people that are staking for 3 months, right? Half of our people staking are staking for 3 fucking months.
I'm staking for
Let's
3
go,
months, yep.
bro. Yeah, dude. Like, and we thought like 5%, 10% would stake for 3 months. So like the conviction's there for our holders, and we just needed to like get that like curve of like where there's finally people that are not really looking to just like do a quick flip on this, which obviously if you're staking for 3 months, that's not the goal.
Yeah.
And just like riding with us through this fucking thing, And so we knew that would happen, and it has. I mean, just like any project, especially any project that's minted recently, it's been so brutal. Like they mint and then it's just like FUD. Like if you don't do shit like immediately, I mean, dude, you better be ready. Like, and I'm used to that. Like I've dropped countless lineups where people just go, "Yo, this sucks. Like this is awful." Like I've been in that situation with my businesses in real life, so I can certainly handle that. But it is interesting when you have like a community full of people, and it's not everybody, but there's pockets of people that are just like fudding their own bags. It's like, yo, like give us some time. Like this, I'm talking the first like 5 days. It's like give us some time. Let us do some things, let the market also work itself out. It's down 30%. So yeah, it was a super interesting time.
Yeah. I think sometimes people need to remember that there's so many factors that play into why a certain project does what it does. And so you got to stop speculating like why it's doing this or why it's doing that, because there's so many factors at play, and most of which you can't even control.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, like, if anybody can look at me and say, this is why OK Bears did what it did, dude, there's so many factors at play that like are impossible to put all those puzzle pieces together. Right?
Timing is like almost one of the biggest ones, right?
Right.
Like, the cyclical cycles of NFTs, like they're almost more cyclical than uptrends and downtrends in the actual crypto market.
Yeah.
They happen quicker, and they like I consider like March to April it was a pretty mega bull run, like with D-Gods just crushing the world, right? And then like May, just everything took a turn, and I guess towards the end of May, like right around, I guess Sol went from 100 to 50, and that was, I remember, all the I'm leaving NFTs, I'm leaving Twitter posts.
Yep.
But yeah, like I think timing's a lot of it, and timing can definitely be on your side, and I think it was on our side as well. For the most part, like I wouldn't have wanted to mint a week later. That's for sure. No. But yeah, I feel fortunate about like everything that happened time wise for us.
Yeah, I mean there's no way, and it goes back to with a project like OK Bears that's super hyped, and then you guys being super hyped. There's no way for those project founders, and obviously this includes you in this, to win with everybody, right?
Yeah, no way.
There's always going to be some people that are like, this should be at 200, or I bought mine way above floor and so it should be at this point or whatever, and then matching expectations when in reality, like, it does take time to do really cool shit. And so it's a matter of like there's only so much that you can have planned beforehand because you still don't know what's going to happen. I guarantee I would love to have the OK Bears founders on the podcast.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to them yet, but I've been trying to make that happen because I would love to know what did they actually think was going to happen before they minted, because it went so fucking nuclear that it's whatever they thought they had planned, they probably all just went to the whiteboard and just said, cross all this shit out.
We got to figure new shit out.
We just completely changed the whole game. So now we need to pivot from there, right?
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing with you guys, is that then you guys came out and all of a sudden you become such a hype project. And then there's all these people, speculating this, speculating that, yada, yada, yada. And then you have to figure out, okay, the market drops. What are we going to do to like keep our project afloat, to keep the hype up? And there's just so much that goes on. And I think sometimes people look at these situations as like black or white, and it's like, dude, there's so much gray area. There's so much that happens that like is just, I don't know. It's not such a simple thing of like, this is why this project is at this price. This is why this is at this price. There's so much that goes on. There's so many different reasons why certain things do what they do. And so, once again, I think you guys were in a position where you were essentially in a no-win position, because I don't know how you would be able to appease everybody when the project becomes that hyped. But at the same time, now you're in a point where, like you said, it's like you found the bottom, right?
Yep.
And now people are able to accumulate. If you want to accumulate, you're able to do that right now.
Yep.
And and no matter what price point somebody bought in at, obviously it's not to say to like always look at floor price and things like that.
Right.
But if you guys are doing really cool shit, floor price is going to go up, right?
Yep.
So if you guys are giving people reasons to delist and everything like that, then you're going to see, it's going to go up. And so it's a matter of just finding that bottom. You guys found that bottom. Now seeing where it goes.
Yeah, and kind of my theory on like buying right now is, I think for one, you should be buying, in my opinion, based on two things: sustainability, longevity. Like, is this project going to be able to make it? Like, are they going to even have money a year from now if Solana is at $15? Did they transfer it to USDC? And then buying into teams, right? Like, I've always bought into teams. When I bought my DGOD back in January, I tweeted and said, I can't remember the exact words, but basically it was like, I am buying this because these dudes are relentless. Like, they do not fucking stop. And I see them all over the place. And like, I know the team's working 24/7. And I think more than ever, like, there's unfortunately going to be projects in the next probably 6 months that like they're going to kind of slowly stop working, and it probably sucks because they may have had really good intentions and they may be smart dudes or women and that we're going to try and build something cool, but when the money runs out, when the hype train runs out, like what are you supposed to do? And I believe there's always a way out. Like, there's always a way to dig yourself out of any hole that you're in. I've been in plenty in, my various businesses over the years, but I think a lot of people are just going to unfortunately give up. So like, what I look for right now when I'm evaluating a project is team and sustainability. Like, do I think they're going to be around plugging away in 2 years?
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
So going to the sustainability side of things, what did you guys do to make sure that you guys are going to be sustainable moving forward?
Yeah, so like, okay, I'm trying to think of the timeline here. It wasn't too long after OK Bears minted that Solana went from 100 to 50.
Yeah.
Which is a 50% drop. Like, that's insane, right? Like, that's no joke. Like, in stock market, that takes years, that just doesn't happen. But in crypto, we're just like, oh yeah, whatever.
That's a typical Tuesday.
Yeah. So, so when that dropped and was at 50, and it was kind of holding 50 for a while, and that's when we minted, we just didn't feel good about it, and we didn't feel good about where Bitcoin was. So we told Magic Eden, we're like, right when you get the SOL, transfer it to USDC. And I can't remember if they said, they're like, really? Like, I can't remember if that was like surprising to them. We're like, yes, every single bit of it. And you lose a little bit of money when you transfer with the fees at that level. And then we did the same thing with our royalties. Like, because if you look at any real business, which all of these projects are real businesses, and I think some do a better job of treating them like that than others. And that's not me talking shit. I'm just saying, like, you can tell that there's some people out there that are like really structuring this shit right.
Yeah.
You don't hold a highly speculative asset as like 80% of your balance sheet. That's insane.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucking crazy. Like, to even hold like probably more than 2% of it, like on a normal business, would be like, that's iffy still, right? So we transferred everything to USDC. I did like projections that we do have a big team. I will say that. Like I like to invest in people. I believe that people bring the value, right? The people that build the cool shit that everyone loves. That's what provides the value and excitement and all that to the holders. So we do have a big payroll, and I modeled out basically what the next 2 years could look like, and I based it on if we didn't have any more royalties, just assuming the worst. Like everyone hates Trippin Ape Tribe now. Yeah. Like and we can make it a really long time, which we're grateful for. And we're also fortunate to have had the highest volume ever in 24 hours. But I believe that, we actually got some shit for like transferring our SOL to USDC. And I was just like, dude, like it dropped to 25 after that. Like, right. That's a lot of money we would have lost. So, we did our projections, did performas, and like, we feel really good about our longevity. Like because, there's also other things that we're doing within our ecosystem that are in theory going to bring us revenue.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, as a holder, I like to know that you guys are in that position, and and I think too, everyone, like, we all love Solana, we all want to see Solana succeed and everything like that. But at the end of the day, like, you pay your rent in USD, you like everybody, you pay your utility bills in USD. Like at the end of the day, you can't just be like, hey, so Mr. Tenant here, my Solana dropped, right?
Yeah. So are you gonna take 50% less?
So I'm gonna need you to cut my rent in half.
And I used to make those comparisons to people on Twitter, and it's almost like some people didn't get it. I think most people get it, but like I'm gonna be really honest. That one SOL equals one SOL shit, like that's just not how things work in business. Like if I'm not gonna so let's say we didn't transfer our money and it went down 50%, and we lost I don't even know what that would be, 600, 700 grand, right? Yeah. Like, and then you're going to tell me one SOL equals one SOL? Like, come on, dude. Right, like, so that's, I don't know. It just seems like one of those like influencer things that they say like every 20 tweets that they have on some document that they just copy and paste, Yeah. So I don't know. We thought that was smart, and I hope other projects converted to USDC. We have a price point that we're waiting for, and we're going to buy back as much SOL as we possibly can. But,
I mean,
probably not as much as we can, but get back in.
It's the thing of like, at the end of the day, I want to know that the project that I'm invested in is good financially. Their team is taken care of and everything like that. So if you guys sold at 50, let's say, and you said, all right, at 50, like, we've now got enough money to run our project, assuming not a single royalty from now, forever. We're able to run our project for the next year, let's say.
Yeah, and we can go long on that.
Okay, so hypothetically, let's just say it's a year and a half, right? Yep. If then SOL goes up to 70, there's always going to be some people who are like, wow, you guys are fucking idiots, blah, blah. But it's like, but also if SOL then dropped to 10, you'd be saying that they're
completely screwed.
You'd also be calling them fucking idiots. Right. So it's like, at the end of the day, you have to protect your own ass, right?
Yeah.
And you guys were doing that. You were protecting your team's ass, which in return protects your holders.
Yeah.
So, there's always going to be people who are going to have something negative to say. That's just life in general.
Well, that's just Twitter, right?
That's not even just Twitter. That's just literally life in general.
There's
totally always going to be somebody who has something negative to say.
Yep.
But like, you guys were doing what made sense and what you should have done, and I think like I said on one of the podcast episodes, I can't remember with who, I was saying like, could you imagine if back in whenever SOL was 250, if a project came out back then and was like, we sold all of our SOL for USD. People would be like, you guys are fucking idiots. I can't believe you sold it for USD.
Well, yeah, because everyone thought it was going to 1,000, right?
You guys don't believe in Solana, blah, 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 blah. Now those people would be praised as geniuses.
Yeah,
huge. So, it's like at the end of the day, you have to give time for things to play out, right? So, yes, there's a solid chance that Solana dips from where it's at right now. There's also a chance, because none of us can fucking predict this stuff, that like Solana goes to 150 next month and like that's that. I doubt that's going to happen, but there's always a chance, right?
For sure, yeah.
And so at the end of the day, it's difficult to predict this stuff, but what you do know is these are our operating costs, and so we need to have this amount of money in order to run our business. And so you guys were making sure that you had that kind of money. That's smart. That's just, and anybody who says otherwise.
I don't want to wake up every day and like have to look at how much money we have in our war chest.
Right,
I want to know like, here's what we have. We're good for this long. We can do this kind of cool shit because we have this kind of money. And like, it should, in my opinion, make teams and their holders like more confident when you kind of have something set in stone. I mean, we're in a bear market. You got to protect your assets.
Yeah, 100%. So, okay, so you talked about it a second ago, talking about like the team and everything like that. How did you guys piece together your entire team?
Okay, so Danny and I, we know each other IRL through one of my business partners. And he is the one that I used to, we were like shitcoin degens, like the ultimate dude. Like buying like you think rugs are bad in the NFT space? I mean, we'd get rugged 2-3 times a day in the shitcoin world. And it was just like, oh, okay, cool, on the next one. But so we were deep in that, and just had always like, I don't know, kind of worked together like in any crypto thing we were doing, you know, whether it's like talking about like trading bots or you know, Uniswap or PancakeSwap shit. And so Mr. Hankey, who's one of our devs, is IRL friends with him. And so like, and now I've known Hankey since before we started the project too. But, and then Brisket is someone I also know IRL through a different project that I did NFT Moonfest for. I threw a project or a festival in Vegas for an ETH project. And then King and Fenris, we did just straight up meet on Twitter and Discord. I met King because he was trying to sell me a banner from D-Gods. He's like, let me design a banner for you. And just talking, and I saw that he said community manager in his bio, and I was like, bro, like I got this project. Like you wanna ride this wave? And he was about it. And then Fenris, Danny had found him in some like Discord, like job posting Discord. It was for some other project. I can't remember what it was. Maybe Cats or I don't know. But I will say about our team, I feel insanely grateful that like everyone on our core team are like the absolute biggest like chads, dude. Like they're big brain motherfuckers, and they have ideas, and they work 24/7. They're all full time. So this is the only job they have now. And yeah, man, I love our team. I'm insanely confident on them. Like I'm a firm believer in you never want to be the smartest person in the room.
Yep.
And they make me feel like that, which is great. But yeah, so, and just to kind of break that down. So King, community manager, Danny's my co-founder. He kind of just handles anything and everything just like alongside me. Brisket is, he's a dev, but he's really the mastermind behind the on-chain quest. And he's a smart, really creative dude. And same with Fenris, and he's all things marketing. And then Hankey kind of just like works along Brisket alongside of all of us, and just also does development work. So aside from that, I mean, now we've hired MR head mod. We hired, we just hired him. I'm trying to think of it. I don't want to use his real name. Yeah. Oh yeah, Hayes. He goes by Hayes, a new developer, and he's an animal too. And then we obviously have Fig, our artist who I explained before I met just kind of through the music scene. But then, God, we have so many mods, and like we have what's called tribe sitters, or trip sitters, which are kind of like it's a little bit like of an elevated community member that kind of helps out. So, yeah, we kind of all met in just different ways, and it's worked out so amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite aspects of the whole Web3 space is meeting people IRL, and then meeting people that you know through Twitter, and then all of a sudden you guys get together and you start, coming up with cool ideas and things like that. I mean, even last night, like, we recorded the podcast. Then after we recorded it, we were like, to be honest, we could do better.
I will say this one's going much better.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, we were just both out of it.
I was so tired, dude.
Yeah, it is. I don't know what my excuse was, but we were both just out of it. Yeah. And so, we said, okay, you know what? Let's just scratch it. You're like, all right, I'm gonna take a nap. Let's get back after it afterwards. So we went out to eat afterwards, and we had a bunch of people. One of the guys drove up from San Diego, and then we had a bunch of people who were just LA based. All got together, most of which had never met before. I think there was only two of us. I think, obviously you and I had met before, and then Erman and I had met before, and that was it. And so we all got together, had a great time, and we just had a fun time in real life and just chatting and get to know each other. And we had whatever we had, 6 or 7 of us, and then most of us are getting together again tonight. And it's like that's the stuff about the whole Web3 space that I love, is people just getting together. People were talking about their projects, they were pitching ideas, and it's like that's the sort of stuff that I love about all of this, because Twitter's fun and everything like that. But when you actually get together, you're having drinks together, you're eating some, we were at
you're eating bratwurst,
together.
Yeah.
I'm still pissed I didn't try they had a rattlesnake one. Did you see that on the menu?
No.
Bro, I almost tried that.
No, that's too much, bro.
What's your price? Everyone's got a price.
No, I'd eat the shit out of that.
Okay.
No.
We might have to try that out.
Yeah.
But it's they had pheasant on there, bro. They had so many things. They had rabbit.
It was really good,
dude. Crazy menu.
I was very surprised actually how good these sausages were.
Yeah, it was incredible. Yeah. But yeah, it's like just a fun time in real life,
dude.
And it's like, and that's the sort of shit that I love, because it just like it shows you that everybody's just normal people in the space, and they're just fun people to be around and everything like that. And then you get together in real life and you realize how much in common you guys all have and everything like that. And
then, it seems like there is a pretty specific type of person that likes NFTs.
Yeah,
like and not. Well, for one, it seems like they're all stoners. Like,
but then I've never smoked in my life.
Yeah.
So it's
true.
It's, to be honest, I think the easiest way to like sum it up is it's all people that are forward thinking, because you have to be in this space, right? Like it's such an odd thing that like all of us, when you try to explain this to somebody who's not in the NFT space, it's still so hard for people to understand. So you have to be forward thinking to be in this space right now, because we're, the cliche ass statement of like, we're so early, we are
super early,
and so
bro.
Therefore you have to be forward thinking. And so I think that's the one part about all of this, is that everyone is really forward thinking. Everyone's really innovative, because you have to be forward thinking to be kind of into NFTs, to be honest.
Well, and it's also a counterculture, right? Like crypto, I think in general is a counterculture, but this is also based on art.
Yeah.
So like, I think at its like core, this definitely falls into like a counterculture, which, it seems that you always kind of find like degens in countercultures, but yeah, I think this like attracts the same type of person in a sense. Like again, not everyone needs to smoke weed to be in it. Like that's not a requirement, But like,
I do take edibles, by the way. Let me clarify.
Yeah. but like it still does seem to be like every time I've met someone in the NFT space, I don't know, I vibe with them really well. Yeah. It's kind of similar to like the festival space where, I could sit down with like some festival lovers and shoot the shit all night, but like there's a lot of topics that I would have, nothing in common with someone to, sit and discuss.
Right. Oh yeah. There's always things that you're different on and whatnot, but it's like for the most part, we all just get together and shoot the shit and enjoy each other's company and everything like that. So, but going back to getting back into Trippin Apes and everything. So can you talk about what has surprised you the most throughout the entire process, from when you guys first put your first thing on Twitter to now? What has surprised you the most about the entire process?
I think the obvious answer is like the hype was surprising, right?
Yeah.
And we came out very intentional with like specific branding, a specific brand voice, content, and that the goal I think for any project is to get as many eyes on it as possible before they mint, right? But we never expected that many. And I think one of the surprising things was like getting messages from like Atlanta Falcon players on their like verified Twitters, and like Manchester United players, and like Steve Aoki's manager, and shit like that. Like the reach that this thing ended up getting was insane, and going on a lot of spaces on the East side that I think we went on like 3 that were like, oh yeah, this is the first Soul project we've ever had. And so like how much visibility and traction this thing got was really, really surprising. And then I think the other big thing, and I don't want to say I underestimated, but maybe that is the right word. Like, but when we went from pre-mint to mint to post-mint, that transition is difficult. And I think like if I could give a project advice now, it would be like really be ready for that like first week after mint and like what you're gonna do, because you're so laser focused on this fucking mint and getting through this mint and selling the thing out, making sure everything's good, that you almost forget like after is when it really, really starts. Yeah. And like we definitely had stuff ready, but I just if I could do it over again, I would get a little more prepared for that. And that's certainly what I'd recommend for someone. But I don't want to sit here and say that like I'm shocked that people liked this project so much. I'm really glad they did, and that's why we built it. But more than anything, I think I'm just like super grateful and stoked that like people like kind of understood the vision and like got behind what we're doing. I mean, I think anyone would appreciate that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think with anything, I think when you drop something, it is really difficult to know exactly what's going to happen. And so I go back to, it's hard to be, I don't know if anybody can say I was properly planned for like what was going to go down once mint happened and everything like that, because there's so many variables that come into play that you're not even, you have no clue what's going to happen. But I think the biggest test of it is like, then what do people end up doing, right? And how does the team pivot? Have they put the right team around them to be able to pivot? Because any business, if you watch like Shark Tank, they talk all the time about when you're investing into a business owner at that point, you're not investing into the business, you're investing into the business owner, right? Because that person's going to have to pivot when things don't always go according to play, right? Yep. Like there were so many businesses during 2020 that had to adjust because of COVID restrictions and things like that. We saw manufacturing facilities that all of a sudden shifted to creating masks because that was the high demand at that point, right? And so it's like, every business has to adjust based on what's happening, and a lot of what's happening is outside of your control, right? Yeah. And so that's, one of the cool parts about the podcast is somebody has the ability to hear you, get to know you a little bit more, and then figure out, okay, hey, do I think Trippin Apes is going to be able to adjust as time goes on and as things happen and things like that? Obviously, I believe that the answer is yes, but then everybody else has to watch from home and make that decision too, right?
100%.
And so there's just a lot that happened, and so it's the right team has to be around you in order to pivot and make the right decisions. And, and that's something that I think is why like these podcasts and whatnot are super helpful, is to see, is that the right team involved? Or, is this a team where I'm like, shit, I don't know if they know what the fuck they're doing.
Totally. And we noticed that. And like I said, how I believe you invest in project teams and founders and everything. So how we kind of combated our mysterious and secretive nature of the project in the beginning was, dude, we did so many spaces. I mean, we still do tons of spaces. I mean, I think I did 3 or 4 just this past week. But we just believe that, if I'm just typing on Twitter all day, you can, I have time to sit there and think about what I'm going to type and really phrase this, right? But I think this podcast or going on spaces and getting asked random questions, I think that really shows how these people operate and how they kind of can think on their toes. And I think that's telling of how people can observe and pivot in certain situations. So that was kind of our form of transparency, was getting on these spaces, talking with people. I mean, dude, I can't even count how many calls I've gotten on just to talk to a high profile person in the space and be like, yo, I want to just chat with you for 15 minutes and tell you what I'm about and tell you what this vision for this project is about. And I mean, honestly, every one of those calls has ended amazingly. I mean, I did that with Soul Big Brain super early in the game, and I remember, I certainly didn't ask him to do this, but right after he tweeted, he's like, "Yo, these guys are the real deal. They're trying to do real shit."
And to be honest, you did that with me, and and I'm not nearly as big as Soul Big Brain or anything like that, but you took time out of your day. I think our first phone call was probably an hour long. So, it's you took the time to make phone calls and develop relations with people and things like that, and that's smart, and that's the sort of shit that every project has to do. And I think even if if you're driving somewhere and you've got 30 minutes, hop into a Twitter space and just answer some questions. It's that sort of stuff goes such a long way. Mm-hmm. And people then have the ability to get to know you a little bit more and your personality and things like that, especially when you're not doxxed. Because take Frank, for example. I think one of the reasons why people love Frank so much is because, they don't know his real name. Yes, most people don't know what he looks like and things like that, but Frank's personality.
Totally,
and
right.
You can tell that from being in Twitter spaces with him or having his Twitter notifications on and seeing what he tweets and things like that. And so the more that you develop that trust with your community, and that just comes from communication at the end of the day. And so you've gone out of your way to do that. And obviously I know you'll continue to do that, but it's that's what people have to do in order to develop the trust with the community.
I think especially now, and it's maybe I miss it, but I feel there may be a lack of that. It's funny because the space, there's a scene that's being created right now with spaces, the Shill and Villain and Amy and, what is it, Mike, I think.
Michael Lee, XRP.
Yeah, King Fudd. Sneaky. Yeah. They're all in there all day, and I fucking love them. And low-key, I join on my burner account sometimes so I don't get brought up while I'm working. But, I think transparency is super important, which is weird because we have a mysterious project, right? But it's not that mysterious anymore, honestly. But so I try to, if someone wants to do a call with me just because they, maybe they fucking hate something about my project. Maybe they're like, this is the dumbest shit I've ever seen. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's jump on a call for 30 minutes and let me see if I can change your mind. If not, we'll go our separate ways. Cool. This community's not for you. All good, right? We'll find the people that are. That's fine. But I have those calls all the time and they always end great.
Yeah. I mean, it's important to have those calls, and it's important to develop that trust with the community, especially once again during a bear market, because
100%.
people are so hesitant to we have to break this down and remember that we're using this magic internet money to buy these magic internet photos, but it's still real money and it buys real shit, and so it's at the end of the day what we're doing is still on paper crazy, right?
Yeah, it's insane.
So you have to go out of your way to earn the trust of the community, because when people get rugged and things like that, it hurts, or if there's a slow rug or whatever. And so the more you go out of your way to develop a relationship with the community, the less people that are going to be willing to sell, because then they feel like they know you, and so they're less likely to be hesitant with your project, and they're more likely to go to battle for you, right?
100%. And I'd like to believe that we're well past the point of anyone thinking we would ever rug this
right,
thing. But that's not my point. My point is more and we had a long conversation about doxing versus not doxing, right? Yeah. And and I talked to the team about it, and I went to New York. I was obviously fully doxed, that's not the problem. We're not hiding from anybody, but I do think with our project and our lore that we do, we're just the disciples, right? We're just Chorl's disciples. So it shouldn't matter as much what I look like or who I am or anything like that. But I guess if you want to get to know me, hit me up and let's chat. But I think this is kind of how Frank looks at it too, where it's Lysergic is a character in this story of Trippin Apes, right? And Chorl's journal and the disciples and all that. So if you saw me, that's still not really me in the Web3 world, essentially. So sure, if we're ever in the same place and you want to go get dinner or something and see who the fuck I am and learn about me, cool, let's do it. That's not the point. But I think there's something to be said about kind of the fun behind it. I think it's fun as shit that Frank is not doxxed. I think it would kind of ruin the allure a little bit, And Frank's not going to rug anything, right? Or a lot of these other project founders, I don't know if the Stoned Ape guys, I know they're on your podcast, they're not doxxed, right? He wasn't a mask.
No, he was in a mask.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are. I don't even know who it is, but they're not going to rug anything. You just you have to build that reputation. I hope we're there. Just with a lot of people in the space know who we are. They know my first and last name. I mean, you have my number. Yeah. There's a lot of people that do. We'd have people outside my house with pitchforks if we ever did.
I'd be with them.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, no. It comes down to, at the end of the day, do you develop trust with the community? And you can do that without doxing. You just have to
do it. You have to do it.
You can be doxed and not have that trust with the community, right? Yeah. So it's the same thing. I've had people that have said to me, when it comes to the podcast, they're how do you find a balance between talking about giving your opinion and just straight up asking questions? And I'm well, if I only ask questions, then I don't develop any trust with the community. I have to give my opinion too, because I am a fellow degen. So I am, speaking for a lot of the people who are like me, who don't have a project, but you're a degen and you're in a lot of these projects and things like that. And so I have to find that communication balance, because if I'm just asking questions and I never give my opinion, then you don't even really know how I feel about things, right? 100%. But I've wanted to give my opinion on certain things so that people can build trust with me. And then therefore, if I'm going to battle for a project and being hey, I really love what they're doing and things like that, it carries more weight if you respect my opinions on certain things versus if I just never give my opinion on anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have your questions, right? And this conversation is even very different than the one we had yesterday.
Oh yeah.
But I think we're still covering everything. I think we're just covering more.
Yeah.
And you have your questions, but you do a really good job of actually communicating, and then asking a question that it kind of makes it. Let me just take that whole thing over.
All good.
Yeah, but it's related to what you were getting at, but you actually carry the conversation instead of some spaces or podcasts where it's just hey, tell us about your project. How did you meet your founder? It's just the same. They don't ever do any follow-ups. It's no conversation. It's just me sitting there talking. It's weird.
It's straight up a Q&A, which
it sucks.
I want a conversation. That's what I'm trying to do, because what people don't see is that before we start this podcast, we're chilling.
We're straight up.
Sometimes we're having coffee, sometimes we're chatting about whatever. We were chatting about last night and just talking about the conversations we had and things like that. So then when we sit down, I'm not going to have it be just straight up So, what was the inspiration behind your project? Okay,
I've had
question.
those though, and it's weird as shit,
fuck
dude.
that.
Like it's
like I just want to have a conversation because we're friends at this point.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know, so it's like, yeah, I just want to have a genuine conversation with you, and you know, and see where it goes, and you know, we're always gonna fall back to some of the questions on here, and so with that. We're going to go right into one of the next questions. So let's talk about your plans for Valhalla Labs.
Yeah. Okay. So Valhalla Labs is the parent company that basically brought Trippin Apes to life, essentially. That is actually us, the team, is Valhalla Labs, right? And the reason that we have a lab, you can call it, you know, a studio in a sense or whatever, is because we understand that, well, first of all, Trippin Ape is really just like the beginning for us in our vision. But we also understand that, you know, we're a project about psychedelics, and that's not going to vibe with maybe everyone that we want to work with, every like project collaboration, or, you know, maybe we want to acquire a company or something like that. It might not just mesh with that. So Valhalla Labs is like the really clean cut, just like normal brand that we can just do a little bit more with if needed. And that, you know, if we ever do a future collection or anything, it will all fall under that, right? So Trippin Apes is the Genesis collection from Valhalla Labs. And you know, the goal ultimately, I think with any Genesis collection should be that things flow back into it and they get the most reward. But yeah, I think this will allow us, and we're already in talks with some different companies and just having some different ideas about like what Valhalla Labs can do that's different than what Trippin Apes is all about. Because Trippin Apes is very niche, right? It's a lore-driven project that is very specific about these apes that have taken these psychedelics and are in this cult tribe thing, right? So,
but it's not a cult.
But it's not a cult. But it's a tribe, but it has it resembles a cult.
But it's not a cult.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Valhalla Labs I think just allows us to get like a little more creative with what we're trying to do as far as like any collaborations or just like new business ideas. For example, you know, events are going to be a big part of what we do, and I don't think, like, maybe I'm wrong. We're actually working on some event stuff, but I haven't gotten this far. You know, I see it more like Valhalla Labs presents this event, right? And then some Trippin Ape logos at the bottom, stuff like that with some other projects. But that's kind of the idea, is like Valhalla Labs is the brand that, I don't want to say it's more family friendly, because at the end of the day, we still did make a project about, you know, apes on drugs, but it's just more universal, I think. And so like that's where the standalone fashion brand that we're working on with Tim is going to be really a Valhalla Labs project. Although again, the idea is for everything to flow back to Trippin Apes, especially right now while it's the only collection. But you know, future collections down the line, it kind of creates this loop where it's like every collection kind of feeds into the last one in a sense.
Yeah.
Unless you really, really want it to be standalone, or we like bring another project into the our ecosystem. But and actually, that's the best way to put it. Like, we want to create a Valhalla Labs ecosystem, whether that's our projects we potentially acquire down the road, IRL businesses we acquire, the fashion brand, you know, the production company that we'll inevitably be building for events. So that's kind of just the umbrella that houses everything we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Yuga Labs, obviously, with Bored Apes and things like that. So, yeah, no, that makes sense. So you brought him up a second ago. So Tim DC, the new creative director for Valhalla Labs, why did you guys choose to work with him?
So I think I put it this way yesterday, and I think this is the best way to do it. Like, if you were going to start a car company, you know, like a new electric car company, you wouldn't try and do it yourself. You would hire an engineer that used to work on Tesla. Yeah. Right? So Tim worked on Off-White basically from the get-go, right next to Virgil. He was the design director. And, you know, I assume most people know what Off-White is, but Off-White is, without question, probably, I don't want to say top one, but probably top.
Oh, it's the biggest streetwear brand
Yeah,
in the world.
It's massive. You know, the only thing that might be bigger, I don't know if you want to call it by revenue or what, but like Supreme's huge as shit, right? Yeah. But big, absolute one of the biggest streetwear brands in the world. Created by an absolute legend. They were acquired by LVMH, which is Louis Vuitton. So, you know, this guy literally was in the trenches from day one, like bringing a streetwear brand from nothing to the biggest in the world. So he has seen it all from, you know, doing design concepts, material, licensing, you know, Paris Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week. Like, he really knows the whole thing. And like, the great thing about Tim is he is truly, like, and I mean at his fucking core, like a creative dude. Like, that's just what he is. Like he through and through creative, and he's a material freak. Like he loves like top quality materials. And we linked up with him, I guess, through the project essentially. And he stopped working with Off-White when Virgil died, actually last November. So he was kind of chilling for a little bit, and he wanted to start something on his own, or just like more so, him kind of at the helm. And so started talking with us, and we're like, dude, we're like looking for exactly what you are. Like that was the idea, was to hire someone, because I believe that if you're gonna do something, you need to hire someone that can do it right. You know, unless like for my, for events, like that's what I do, so I'll do those. But anything else, I think you should hire the people that know how to do it. So we talked to him. He was all about it. I mean, the dude went to work right away. Like when we first started talking, he started like sending logo sketches and like sending shirt sketches and like visions and all that stuff. And he's a great addition to the team, and how that's going to work. So what we believe is, merch seems to be a part of every project, which is cool. Like, I'm wearing kind of the basic merch that every project has with their logo on it, right? And we're going to have that actually really soon. Our actual like kind of just, again, our basic store. This isn't designed by Tim. This is just like some fun holder merch. But we also thought, like, if we want to build a brand that is revenue generating, like we don't want to just keep taking money from holders. Like that's not how this works. So it's not sustainable. So we're working with Tim to build a standalone brand that is related in a sense. Like when we release the name, it'd be like, oh yeah, that makes total sense why it's called that. But it also, like, you can not know anything about Trippin Apes, or it doesn't, you don't have to care about NFTs or Web3 or anything to be into this. So it will really, in our idea is for it to stand on its own legs. Like, and we think it will, especially with Tim. I mean, he's very well known in the industry, although he's, as kind of that like ultimate creative, he's not a big fan of social media. So like he doesn't have that big presence there. Like, like Virgil did. Virgil's larger than life for sure. And Tim just kind of like a creative in the background type of dude. But we just, the conversations we've had with him and like the vision for what we're trying to do there has me fucking amped, like straight up.
There we go.
Yeah.
So if I have this correct, so you guys have merch coming for Trippin Apes, and then you essentially have this other collection that you're working on with Tim. Mm-hmm. And so the Trippin Apes merch is going to be coming out when?
Like I was literally working on the Shopify before I came here. Like,
okay.
It
might even be out before this podcast comes out.
Yeah, very soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So very, very soon. And then the collection with Tim is going to be a little bit further down the line.
Yep.
And a little bit more like high quality, it sounds like.
Yeah. Like he wants to use like Balenciaga blanks and this dude is all about material. He found this like material that like 3M like bought the rights to use it, and he like bought like the last little bit that he could, because he was like, I'm worried that they're like going to take it and like never let it see the light of day for 10 years. So he has this material that he's like obsessed with, and he like wants to put it on these shirts, and it's like you can't even like stab through it. But it feels like it looks like it's like parchment paper. But you cannot like stab a knife through it.
So you hear that, guys? If you're rocking Trippin Apes,
you will not get stabbed, bro.
Do not test that. Do not test that.
But it's also interesting looking material. But like, yeah, he's very much like, he will not accept anything less than like really, really top quality material. And I'm a freak about my clothing. Like I hate low quality shit.
That's dope. So, okay. So now I want to pivot to, so we've talked a little bit about like the staking element, the staking for 90 days and things like that. So there's the meditation with that, and then it gets into like the meadow and things like that. So what can you tell us about like what is that eventually leading to as we're doing these various things like planting the spores and getting these mushroom coins and things like that, or mushroom claim tokens?
Yeah. So it's multiple periods of ascension. Like the end goal is full ascension.
Okay.
And at that period, there will be a reward. Something will happen that will be very worthwhile in our opinion. So, but to kind of start at the very beginning, right? So you stake your PFP on, you meditate. It's the meditation, which there's various lockup phases, which yield you certain amounts of tribes, right? So you do that, and then everyone was airdropped a spore. And so what a spore does, it's not actually a mushroom, although that's the only way to really represent it. It's the little pieces that drop down from a mushroom. You can see it in our GIF. And a spore generates more mushrooms in real life, So you can also stake your spore in the meadow and then add power-ups, which are like the light, cow dung, and spray bottle.
Yep.
And between which, or depending on which one you pick, there's different things that happen. So they yield more, they take less time, or a combination of the two. And so the whole goal for this thing is kind of like a red pill, blue pill thing. Like there's at each ascension level, there's different options that you can take. And in a sense, they kind of get you they'll get you the same goal at the very, very end. But like how you get there can be different based on the choices you make, right? So
is one path quicker than the other?
Yes, in a sense, and there will be a benefit for getting there faster.
Okay.
I will say that.
I can see you smiling behind your mask. There's some shit you can't say. I can sense it.
Yeah. Anyway, so don't try to get this alpha out of me right here. So right now we're in the mushroom phase, right? And basically what will happen is, or what is happening is, people are staking their spores, and depending on which power up they chose, at 5 or 7 day interval, they're getting either 1 or 2 claim tokens, right? Which are whitelist tokens essentially. And we had Magic Eden build us. I don't think they've ever really done this before, but they built us this like custom mint site, so you can always mint. And so you get these claim tokens, and you have to make the decision: do I mint these mushrooms, or do I keep these claim tokens? Because could the claim token be used for something else different at a certain time, right? And so that's kind of where we're at of like what people know right now. But that's the idea. And like, a lot of people are, kind of tripping, being like, why are there so many mushrooms that are coming out? Because like the supply it ends at a certain point, but like the point of the mushrooms is not like to provide a NFT with like a dollar value. It's a utility. Like it's a piece that you will use. And, yes, there is a high supply, but eventually there won't be.
Okay. There's some... I can see
it's a mind game, bro.
I can see you behind that mask. You got some shit up in that head. You're not telling me, but okay, I get it.
Well, it's kind of funny because like we went through this for a very long time, and at one point we're like, dude, we gotta like make this even simpler. Like it was very, very complicated, and because we got to that point where, you have to still have people engage, and if it gets too complicated, and if it's like, man, I'm not gonna like do this all the time because I don't even know what the reward is, like. Then it just, it becomes pointless. So we definitely actually dumbed it down. But yeah, so you get through the mushroom phase, and then there's the next phase. I think the next phase is super fun.
Okay. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So now I want to talk about, for a quick second, NFT New York and the whole yacht party and everything like that. So, what was your expectation for the yacht party, and did it match or exceed your expectations? What was your goal with it? Kind of all that good stuff.
Well, it's interesting because like how it started was way different. We pre-mint, we wanted to come out with a bang and like do a yacht party ourselves. Excuse me. And so that was the whole idea. We rented a yacht the day before Magic Eden ended up doing the yacht party. We rented a yacht. I approached another project and was like, yo, you guys want to do this with us? And they're like, fuck yeah, let's do it. And they're like, what if we get Magic Eden involved? And I was, of course, like, well, I mean, yeah, they're essentially the biggest project in the space, right? They are a Solana project. And so I was like, of course, let's get them involved, see what we want to do. And so we went out there to New York before our mint, and like what they wanted to do and what we wanted to do didn't really line up. I think I was being a little stubborn at first because I was like, this is kind of our like coming out thing. It's like our entrance into the space. This is like, yo, we're here. We're trying to do some cool shit. Like, we wanted I wanted to make sure we had some spotlight. But they, had their own idea for the party too. So when we all got back, they're like, well, it makes the most sense for us to kind of like do our own party, but like, we'd love to have you guys involved. And so we just got to talking, and we're like, well, what if we just throw the party in the sky deck, right? And one of the reasons I'm clearing this up is because there's a lot of like misunderstandings about it out there, and like people like fading Magic Eden, being like, that was Trippin Apes yacht. Like, no, it wasn't. Like it worked out exactly how it was supposed to. But so yeah, they gave us the top deck, which was cool. It definitely gave us just a little bit of a different look, which I appreciate because we had been working on this with them prior. So it was nice of them to kind of give us that nod and be like, we trust you to do your thing up top. And it was great. I mean, the rain kind of screwed up some stuff on our end. We were going to almost the entire floor was going to be covered, but we couldn't do any of the vinyl on that. But, we still had our DJ up there. We had our LED wall with a bunch of Trippin Ape visuals. We had the 12-foot inflatable ape, which was crazy. Which was great. Yeah. And then a ton of branding. Like we had vinyl wraps around the bars, these light cubes with our logos. I mean, it was really cool. Like to me, like one of our biggest goals is to like, we don't ever want to feel like we're making enemies. Like we want to be cool with everybody in the space as long as you're cool. Like if you're gonna be a dick to us, then like I don't know, fuck you. But like if you're like a real project and a real motherfucker, like we want to fuck with you. So it was cool being like involved in an event like that as such a new project with with D-God's Stoned Ape Crew, DGen Ape Academy, Boogles. Like the list goes on. And to be honest, I don't know what a lot of those projects think about us, but either way, like sharing the same, even being on the back of the shirt that Magic Eden made with all those guys was cool. And, we look at those kind of opportunities as like a way for them to meet us. Like I met, who was it? I met the Soul Gods dudes and they were fucking great. Like, and I met,
Hax is a legend.
Yeah. They're great. And I met, like the Astros guys. I mean, obviously I had some conversations with Frank out there, but like, it was just, it's really cool. And I think it's really important to like have a little bit of FaceTime because you know how hard it is getting a hold of some of these people. Oh, yeah. Like, I was supposed to have a call with someone yesterday.
didn't come through.
Didn't happen. Yeah. But I scheduled that super late. But anyways, like, that's one of the biggest benefits that we see in these IRL events. Not to mention just like meeting everyone's fucking awesome. Like meeting holders and kind of seeing, the person behind the Twitter handle is pretty fun. Right. But, just like having people understand that you're actually out here like trying to do something cool and like help the ecosystem grow and like help the visibility of just the NFT space in general is really important to us. And just like as much as we can bring these communities together, like that's our goal with our IRL events. But I mean, the party was awesome, dude. Like it was cool. The inside was like kind of your area to grab a drink, network, kick it, like chill with the little, every project had their little area. But the upstairs was the fucking party, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that was the party.
No, it was a great time. I mean, I didn't know what to expect when I first hear Magic Eden Yacht and everything like that. Trippin Apes was one of the sponsors. D-Guy's one of the sponsors. I was like, I don't know what to expect. And then I don't know. It far exceeded my expectations. Like, it was absolutely epic. Like the boat was like 4 levels or whatever. Each level had open bars everywhere. You had your little corners with each project. You're talking with everybody from there. You got the D-Gods doing shoeies. Then you go to the top and the top is all branded Trippin Apes everywhere. You guys got that giant inflatable that was crazy. You got the stage right there that was just epic. Then you had the bar that was all branded Trippin Apes. Like it was just. And then we go out to go out to sea. Seems weird to say.
That's what it is, right? Yeah, you go out on the water.
Go out on the water, and and then you had the whole skyline of the city, sick, and it was just fucking beautiful. And
that was definitely a moment that I'll never forget. Like I remember just like being on the top of that thing and like looking around and being like, "Damn, this is pretty surreal." Like, 6 months ago, a year ago, like none of this shit really even existed. Magic Eden wasn't even around a year ago. Like. So yeah, it was super cool. Like that was an awesome moment. And, I think personally, there's probably people that don't agree, but whether you can come to these events or not, it's beneficial for the project. God, we spent the next entire week on calls with people we met at either our party or in New York.
Yep.
And like the connections we made there. And again, just like I was saying, where it's like, I think sometimes it takes a little FaceTime for someone to be like, okay, you're not just some like idiot that thinks they know what's going on, has, no idea how to build a business. Like, and so I think we made that impression for a lot of people that like, we know what we're doing and like, we're trying to do some dope shit.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
So, all right. So to wrap this up, what does the future of Trippin Apes look like? Do you have any alpha that you want to drop with us? Is there any last messages you want to leave everybody with? What can you tell us about the future of Trippin Apes?
Yeah. So I think I'll go over a lot of the other stuff too, but I think the one thing we didn't really touch on is like, I think a lot of people put us in, well, first of all, they put us in this hype mint category that everyone always talks about, right? And whatever, that's fine. But I think one thing people don't realize is we have some seriously swole devs on our team. And with the addition of Hayes, like, again, one of those dudes doesn't have a Twitter following, but this motherfucker can build. Like, and so we are building some tools right now. The first one that we're building, the goal with it is just to make everyone's lives easier. Whether you're a project or you're a NFT degen, It's just to help everybody out. I don't think we're gonna like charge anything for it. There might be some like tribe, integration with it, but like it's our like first piece that we want to put out there and be like, we're more than just like this lore PFP project. And so we're building also like basically a suite of tools that will help not only projects, but I know there's some stuff that's going to help. I believe I kind of only like approve and oversee this stuff, but the idea is really for us anyways to like not ever really build anything that just benefits us, that does benefit the whole ecosystem, but also has some sort of component that does benefit our holders, whether they can use more of a premium service on this tool, or whether, let's say to use the tool, maybe you have to have 2 apes in your wallet or something like that incentivizes people to like, appreciate our brand and like fuck with what we're doing. So yeah. I think in the next, I hate time frames in this space, but the next few months, 2 months, 3 months, whatever, I think our goal is to really turn some heads. So people are like, oh damn, like these guys are more than just this silly little fucking lore project. Right. So yeah, we have some cool tech coming, and like we do a team call every day, and like we have a section of it where we talk about ideas, and like it seems like every day there's new ideas. So I think that's an important part of a team, is like just kind of staying on top of it, being observant, and just like keeping that creativity alive. And that's one thing that I think all the guys on the team are really good at. So like what we're focused on now will be completed soon, and there's going to be something that we put out in 3 months or something we haven't even thought of right now. Like we were just talking about earlier. It's like, how do you think of something what doesn't exist?
Like never been done before.
Yeah, it's and it's difficult, but like that shit, like it comes up, So I think just with the grind of like this team and like how into this project we are, I think we're really gonna turn some heads, and like, anyone that faded us is gonna fucking regret it.
There you go.
Put it that way. But and outside of that, the events are a big part of it. This merch brand, like look out for that stuff coming soon. And there's even like other stuff that we are working on that we just don't even want to give the slightest bit of hint to, just because we don't want to get, copied or front ran or anything like that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. So, well, hey, man, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the future of Trippin Apes. I'm looking forward to more in real life events and things like that. And I'm looking forward to more times that we get together. We might need to have that rattlesnake sausage next time.
Let's go, baby.
Someone's going to clip that and make that shit sound real weird. But yeah, man, I just want to say I appreciate you coming out here and doing this, and very much looking forward to the future of Trippin Apes. So with that, once again, another reminder, clip this, thread it, do something cool with this. We're gonna be giving away Solana via Haywall.
$1,000.
So $1,000. One soul's one soul though. but yeah, just have some fun with it. And other than that, drop your socials. Where can people find you?
My Twitter name is Lysergic. I need to change my handle from the shitcoin days, but it's at DeFi Gem Hunt.
There we go.
Yeah, that's the
DeFi
Twitter.
Gem Hunt. So and all that's linked in the description. But once again, man, appreciate you coming on.
Dude, thank you so much.
Looking forward to the future of everything that's going to be happening with Charles and the whole Trippin Ape crew and everything like that. So let's have some fun with it. And thank you again for coming on. And thanks to everybody else for listening.
Thank you so much, man. It's not a cult.
It's not a cult. It's not a cult. It's a tribe.
That's right.
See you guys.
Peace.